Let's take a look at get-verb. So get-verb is a commandlet that we can use to view all of the verbs that are available inside PowerShell. So if we do a get-verb and then I pipe that into more, and we're going to be talking about pipe a little bit later, what that does for us is it shows us the entire screen and basically gives us the ability to use the space bar to go through and see all of the different options. So as you can see, there's a lot of different options here for all different kinds of verbs to be able to use. And they're grouped by different things such as data, life cycle, diagnostic, security, etc. So if I wanted to see just the verbs, say that begin with S, I can put in -verb, and that's a parameter, which we'll be talking about in a couple minutes. And I'm going to do S and wildcard. And what that'll do for me is that'll bring up all of the verbs. So we see a number of different verbs here that begin with the letter S and have anything after them. So that's a little bit about a commandlet. So let's dive into what makes up a command. So for this, we're going to use that same commandlet we used previously called get-service. So I'm going to do a CLS, which is actually an alias for clear-host, which clears my screen for me. I like to do that because it keeps it cleaner and keeps the code at the top of the screen. So we're going to type in get-service, and then I'm going to put in a parameter of -name, and I'm going to put M asterisk or wildcard dash computer name, and I use tab complete to complete that, and I'm putting in client 1 and DCO1. So what this is going to do is this is going to run get-service, looking for services with a name that begins with M against the computer names client 1 and DCO1. And because we're on client 1 right now and we're also connecting to DCO1, this is going to take a few moments for this to go. Okay, so this came back with an error. Notice it says, cannot open the service control manager on computer DCO1. This operation might require other privileges. The reason for that is I need to run this in an elevated permission. So I need to run PowerShell as administrator. Many of the things that you do locally, you can run as a standard user, but a lot of times you just simply have to have elevated permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and run PowerShell as administrator. So we'll go down to our icon, we'll do a run as administrator, and I'm going to put in this MB admin account. This is an administrator account that is separate from my standard user account that allows me to split my functions between having a standard user and having an elevated user. So I only use the MB admin when I actually need to run in elevated credentials. So let's try that command again. Get-service, put in -name, $computer name, client 1, and then DCO1. Again, this take a few moments to go because it's basically going out and making remote connections to each of these client 1 and DCO1 to pull the service information for those. Once those come back, we would see a list of all of the services that begin with the name M on each of those. So as you can see here, it doesn't specify for us which of these computers it's on. So it shows, we see that, okay, there's a multimedia class scheduler. We've got that twice, the Windows firewall. So most of them are doubled up except for the Microsoft keyboard filter, which I'm guessing is probably on the client machine. So you see we have a column for status, we have a column for name, and then we also have a column for display name as well. And those are basically the properties of each of those objects. So each line we have there is an object, and we'll be talking about objects a little bit more later. So that gives us information there. So what we can do, and one of the neat things about PowerShell, is we can start condensing our information here. So in our command above, we've got our first parameter, which is the -name, and the second parameter, which is the dash computer name, what we can do is we can start condensing that down to making it easier to type in. So what I can do is I can shorten get-service to GSV. And GSV is an alias for get-service. And I put dash name. We'll do the same one here. We put a space, dash computer name, client 1, and DC01. We'll hit enter. We see we get the same response here. So something important to notice here is notice that every time I put a parameter, there's a space and then the value for the parameter. PowerShell is always looking for it. So it always knows when you put in dash parameter, such as the case of dash name, that right after that, it's going to look for the value that's to go in for that parameter. And basically a parameter value is what the command, in this case get-service, uses in order to be able to run. And then we've got the dash computer name. And then notice with dash computer name, we've got a comma between those two values. So what that allows us to do is we can actually string together multiple pieces of information. So that's what we've done here. So I did this for 2 computers. You could do this for 3, 5, 7, 10. So you could have multiple values in there that go in for that parameter. So then get-service is going to run using each of those parameter values. So to further break this down, what we can do is we can move to GSV and we can simply put in mwildcard dash computer name client 1 DC01. You'll see we get the same value. So what's happened here is we've used this thing called positional parameters. All of the different commands have different parameters and they're all set up in positions. So what positional parameters allow you to do is when you're running commands, you can actually leave the parameter out. So notice I left out the dash name because PowerShell knows when I put simply a value there, it's going to go, okay, I'm going to go to the first positional parameter, which in this case is dash name, and it's going to put that value in there. So this will make it easier for you to be able to create shorter commands and do things more efficiently. The thing you need to just make sure you understand is what are the order of the parameters, and we'll see those when we start digging into the help for specific commands. And the last thing we're going to show here is we're going to show how we can actually shorten parameter names. So in this case, I'm just going to put comp client 1 DC01. So what that allows me to do is positional parameters allows me to get rid of those. What I can also do is I can also shorten a parameter value so that it just includes the letters of the word for the parameter that are needed in order for it to be unique within the list of parameters. So in this case, dash comp allowed me to run that. So that's a little bit about the basics of working with commands. Next, we're going to take a look at help.